Hey, how you doing? It is I, the Terrorific Lady, otherwise known as Brandy, and welcome to Retro Horror School, and happy Friday. Update on my back. It is feeling a lot better. I was diagnosed with acute back strain and something called SI joint dysfunction. So I have a follow-up with my doctor next week. So I am on the mend, fingers crossed. But now on to today's video. Today's video has been several months in the making. It is a tier ranking list of iconic horror villains. A while back, I asked you, who do you consider some of the most iconic horror villains? And I gathered up all of your suggestions and I put them into this tier ranking list. I am so super excited. Now, I have a video on what makes a horror movie iconic, and I will link that up here, up above, wherever it ends up. So I'm just going to point with both fingers. But iconic basically means it is something that is widely known for certain reasons. Like they have a specific look, they have a specific weapon that they kill with, their actions, just something about them makes them iconic. And that's what we'll be exploring today with this tier ranking list. I have 5 categories on here, and going from worst to best, those categories are awful, who, they're okay, awesome, and then terrific or iconic. Now, I would like to thank Cody Leach for the inspiration for this tier ranking list. He is a very awesome horror YouTuber. I'm going to leave the link to his channel down below if you want to go check him out. I am also going to leave a link down below of this tier list template that you can use, and tag me on Instagram or Threads and show me your tier ranking list. You could do it like with a link or a screenshot or whatever you like, but I'm very curious to see how your rankings differ from mine. Now, before we get started, I want to say that my list isn't the end-all, be-all rankings for horror villains. So, I wanted to throw that out there. You may agree or disagree with my rankings, and that is perfectly fine. And as one more side note, when people were making their suggestions, they listed iconic horror villains such as Dracula, Frankenstein, and the Wolfman. And while I do agree that those are iconic horror villains, I am sticking with iconic horror villains from the eras I like to talk about, the 1970s through the 2010s. Just wanted to let you know that. And now, on to the ranking. These are in no particular order, and thank you to everybody for your suggestions. So let's first start off with the first person on our list. We have Angela, who is the villain from the Sleepaway Camp franchise. And I'm going to stick Angela up in the okay category. I have only seen the first Sleepaway Camp. I can see why it is an iconic horror movie, and I can understand the reasoning behind Angela doing what she does. Like, not a very good childhood, and that aunt, oh gosh, that aunt should be up here on this list too. Damn her. But yeah, I've only seen one movie. I know there are several others in the Sleepaway Camp franchise I have not seen, but judging from the one movie that I have seen, I would stick Angela in the okay category. Now, next up, we have Annabelle from the Conjuring franchise, and she is going to go in the awful category. I have never particularly liked the Annabelle movies. There's something about them that I can't connect with. Haunted things, haunted houses is not really a subgenre of horror that I particularly care for unless they can do something just new with it. And the doll trope also is something that I'm a little that I don't really care for because I think it's really played out. There are a few exceptions to this rule, but I'm not a fan of the Annabelle movies as a whole. So that's why it's going down in the awful category. Now next we have Annie Wilkes from Misery, played by Kathy Bates and based on the book by Stephen King. Dear Annie is going to go in the they're okay category. Misery is one movie that I think is due for a remake that is a little bit too closer to the book. Rob Reiner directing it, the tone overall felt hokey. I talked about that way back whenever I did a review on Misery, but I think the overall kind of hokey tone clashed with the creepy, scary tone. And I could see why Kathy Bates won her Oscar. I thought she did a good job, but I think they could have delved a little bit further into her character in the movie, maybe with a different director and a different written script. So that is why she is going into the okay category. Then next up, we have Art the Clown from the Terrifier franchise, which consists of All Hallows Eve, Terrifier, Terrifier 2, and the upcoming Terrifier 3. Art the Clown is going straight up into the Terrorific category. Art the Clown, to me, is a horror villain unlike any that I have seen before. He is, yes, the silent stalker, which is creepy. Yes, he is a clown, which is also creepy. But also, he is a mime type character, and his reactions and the way that he does things, you shouldn't be laughing at it, but you do. And then the special effects work and the makeup on Art brought to the table by Damien Leone contributes overall to the creep factor. I believe that he said something along the lines of he wanted to make almost like the opposite of Pennywise the clown, and he definitely succeeded look-wise and both behavior-wise. Art is an icon in his own right, and I think his icon status is only going to continue to rise. So Art is in the Terrorific category. So next up, we have the Babadook from the film of the same name. And the Babadook for me is going to go into the they're okay category. I thought the movie is fine. I thought that the Babadook being a manifestation of grief and depression, I thought that was very clever. And I know the Babadook has an iconic status for other reasons, which is fabulous. But to me, as a horror icon, not so much. So I consider the Babadook just an okay horror villain. Next up, Candyman. Can you say his name 5 times? I have tried and I cannot. But Candyman, for me, goes into the Terrorific category. Iconic status. The lore behind him, the look of him, the special effects makeup with all the bees like coming out, and then the bloody stump hook hand, and the fact that he is played by Tony Todd, an icon that I would love to meet someday. Got that voice. Ugh, that voice. It gives me chills thinking about it. Like, Helen. That's a very poor impersonation. But just everything about Tony Todd. Tony Todd is Candyman. The lore, the look, the terrifying way that he behaves And then the fact that he is brought, just pretty much, he's brought to life by people's fear of him. So that to me, Candyman is an iconic status. Next, we have Captain Rhodes, who was in George Romero's Day of the Dead, which is one of my favorite zombie movies. But Captain Rhodes himself is going in the awful category. Now, I'm not quite sure if he's going in the awful category because I hate him as a character, or if he's going in the awful category because the actor did such a good job of me hating him. I don't know. For some reason, I can't separate the two. I don't know why, but Captain Rhodes, God, he is somebody that I would throw to the zombies and not give two iotas about. I wouldn't give two shits about him. So yeah, I can't really separate out why I consider him awful, but he's in the awful category for me. Next up, we have Carrie from the 1976 movie, also based on a Stephen King book and directed by Brian De Palma. Carrie to me is going up in the awesome category. So I believe that is our first awesome, one step below iconic. And for me, the reason why she is in the awesome category is that for pretty much the whole of the movie, she's a protagonist. She doesn't flip the switch until that whole rampage at the senior prom.
Trust me, Carrie.
And even then, you can kind of get why she did it, even though you're like, Carrie, no. But you feel sorry for her. You feel sympathetic for her. And I don't know, villains, to me, you can get their motivations, but still be like, well, you're evil. I don't see Carrie as a wholly evil villain, but I do think she is awesome. It's one of my favorite movies. Grew up with it, and that is why it is in the iconic Terrorific category. Next up, we have Chucky from the Child's Play series, and I will have to put Chucky in the okay category. I honestly think the Chucky movies are ridiculous in kind of a fun way. I thought the first one was okay, the second one is okay. My favorite one of the Chucky movies is Cult of Chucky. That's actually, I think, the first one I saw before seeing any of the others, so maybe that's why I like it a little bit more. And I'm not denying that Brad Dourif's voice work for Chucky is excellent. I love Brad Dourif as an actor. His voice brought a lot to that doll, but I don't know. I already mentioned that dolls, like, evil dolls to me, I've always been like, but Chucky wasn't boring. Like, I'll give it that. I'm not going to say that Chucky's awful. I think Chucky is okay. Now we got David from the movie The Lost Boys. And I'm going to stick him up in the okay category. Only because with all the other vampires, to me, he seems like another vampire in the group of vampires. It was actually the lead vampire who caught my attention more in the movie than David actually did. And I think the movie's okay. I think David is an okay character. You can tell he loves being a vampire, he embraces it, and that's who he is. And also, I like vampires, so I have stuck him in the okay category. Now we've got Freddy from the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. And you know where Freddy's gonna go. He is going to go into the Terrorific category. I recently did a ranking where I ranked all 9 films in the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. I will leave a link up to that video up above, but there's a reason why Freddy is iconic. Not only was he brought to life by Wes Craven, the lore of him tormenting children in their dreams, the children of the parents that killed him, so the Elm Street children, his whole burnt face, the knives for fingers, the things that he says, those little like wisecracks that are like you don't want to laugh at them, but you do, and the gruesome and dark nature of Freddy makes him stick in my mind. And that's why he has been able to survive all these years as an icon since 1984. So you can't think 80s horror or horror in general without thinking of Freddy Krueger, which is why he's in the Terrorific category. And next we have Ghostface from the Scream franchise, which now has currently 6 films, and they're going to be making a 7th. It is in the Terrorific category. Ghostface first appeared in the 1996 meta horror movie Scream, directed by Wes Craven, and Scream has been a part of a lot of people's lives since then. Ghostface has the very iconic mask, kind of like the hooded robe. He almost looks like a twisted Grim Reaper type of character. The weapon of choice is a knife, which is a perfectly standard slasher weapon. But the reason why Ghostface, I feel, stands as iconic is the fact that it is a meta horror type villain, a villain that uses the inspiration of scary movies and their killers. Now, that to me, that is kind of funny in a way, and also lends to commentary about violence in the media or the effects of horror films on people, but that's a whole other video topic conversation. But yes, Ghostface, iconic, belongs in iconic or terror. Now we got Hannibal Lecter from the movie Silence of the Lambs. Then we have Hannibal, Red Dragon, and then played by Gaspard Ulliel. I don't know if I pronounced his name right, in Hannibal Rising, but we are focusing on the version of Hannibal Lecter played by Anthony Hopkins, and for me, he goes into the iconic category. And here is why. If you are only in Silence of the Lambs for, some people say 8 minutes and others say 16 minutes, I've heard accounts differ, but if you are only in the movie for that long and people remember you and people can quote your lines and your performance feels longer because of your performance, that to me cements Hannibal Lecter as iconic. Now, as an aside, there's also a Hannibal show where Mads Mikkelsen plays Hannibal, and he is utterly fantastic, but I tend to gravitate towards the Anthony Hopkins version more just because of his mannerisms. He is a sort of a proper man on the one hand, and then on the other hand, he's a serial killer. There's this juxtaposition of two opposite things that should not go together, but I think that's what makes for a fun, iconic horror villain. You don't expect it from someone like Hannibal Lecter, and that is why he is iconic. Terrific. And next, we got Bruce, the shark from Jaws. We're gonna need a bigger boat. And the shark, he goes into the awesome category. Now, he goes into the awesome category because there are a lot of creature feature films. And yes, this is a shark that eats people, but you kind of have to, I kind of see him as him. It's a creature that doesn't really know any better. Like, I don't think the shark is specifically targeting these people, like, because he hates them or whatever. I don't see him having beef with them. Now, Jaws is the only movie I've seen. I know there's a later movie where he goes after the family from the first movie, like for some kind of revenge thing. And I don't know what movie that is. So, but that movie aside, I'm only focusing on the first one because that's the only one I've seen. He's an awesome horror villain because he is a memorable one, a memorable creature, but I don't think he really knows what he's doing. He has this creature mentality. So that's why he's one step below Terrorific, and I put him in the awesome category. And next we have Jack Torrance from The Shining, another horror movie based off of a Stephen King book, and I think the third Stephen King movie on this list. For me, Jack goes into the awesome category. Jack Torrance, played by Jack Nicholson. And I waver a lot on this movie sometimes, either between it being awesome or overrated. But movie aside, it's an interpretation, it's like, of the book. And Jack wavers between a man who has to battle his own demons, or is battling his own demons, alcoholism, takes his job just like with his family. He's not really a villain until the demons or the ghost of the hotel or the spirit of the hotel pokes at his weaknesses, turns him mad. I do think that Jack Nicholson's performance of showing a man going downhill and slowly descending into madness was spectacular. But much like how Carrie wasn't a villain for the entire time, he wasn't really a villain for the entire time either. So for that reason, he goes to the awesome category. Now, Jason Voorhees from the Friday the 13th franchise. Mask that I painted myself, made to look like the one from Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, one of my favorites. And you don't even have to guess where Jason's going to go. He's going to go up into the terrific, iconic category. He doesn't get the mask till the third movie. He wields a machete. He's the silent, stalking killer who has been played by many people over the years. The most definitive Jason for a lot of people is Ted White from Friday the 13th Part 4. A lot of people like Kane Hodder. He is the one who has played Jason the most. And then he's been played by other people like Ken Kirzinger in Freddy vs. Jason and Derek Mears in the reboot of Friday the 13th. But no matter what person plays Jason, it's the movements and iconic mask and then the kills. Oh my gosh, Jason Voorhees has some of the most creative kills besides Freddy Krueger. Though the mask and the kills are what stick out in my mind and make me think of Jason Voorhees. And much like Freddy Krueger, you can't think of 80s horror without Freddy Krueger. You can't think of 80s horror or horror in general without Jason Voorhees. So he's terrific. Next, we have the Jigsaw Killer from the Saw franchise. And I'm going to stick Jigsaw in the Who category. And for this specific reason, I've seen Saw 2, I've seen Jigsaw, and I've seen Spiral from the Book of Saw. So I've seen 4 movies in the Saw franchise. And the face of the Saw franchise, the thing I remember the most is that creepy puppet, Billy the Puppet. Now, Billy the Puppet, if we were talking about that as a horror icon, he'd go up in Terrorific. But to me, the Jigsaw Killer as a whole, I remember the sick little games that he plays. I remember the fact that he takes apprentices. The traps are what stick out, and Billy the Puppet are what stick out more in my mind than the Jigsaw Killer himself. And I love the first Saw. It is one of my absolute favorite horror movies. But with that aside, there are certain things about the Saw franchise that are more iconic than the Jigsaw Killer himself. So that's why Jigsaw goes to the Who category. Now we've got Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. And you know my thoughts about Leatherface, he goes up into the Terrorific category. Because look, a guy who wears a human skin face mask, he carries the atypical slasher weapon of a chainsaw. He's a hillbilly cannibal. He is gruesome, and the lore that's established is like he kills to protect his family, but then they eat the people that they kill. Oh my god. It's so horrific. And coupled with the look of Leatherface is why, for me, he is going into the iconic category. Terrific. Next, we got the Leprechaun. Don't steal me gold. I'm going to put Leprechaun in the okay category. But, I mean, those movies are doofus. I'm not gonna lie, they're such doofus movies, and Leprechaun is not really one of my go-tos whenever I'm thinking of watching a horror movie. I don't think of iconic when I think of Leprechaun, but Warwick Davis did a good job as him. Some of the little wisecracks that he did were pretty funny, and it's one of those that if it's on TV or on a streaming service, I say like, oh, well, I'll watch it, but I'm not going to seek to actively own any of the Leprechaun franchise. So that's why Leprechaun goes into the okay category. And next we got the Lipstick Face Demon from Insidious, and they're going into the Who category. Now the jump scare with Lipstick Face Demon it got me. It really did get me, but this Lipstick Face Demon draws a lot of comparisons to Darth Maul from the Star Wars franchise with the same kind of face makeup, and Lipstick Face Demon does have a lot of like the same kind of makeup and makeup patterns as Darth Maul. So to me, a villain who is iconic should stand well enough on their own without being compared to someone. And for that reason, Lipstick Face Demon could be easily forgettable beyond the fact like, oh, this jump scare, this creepy ass jump scare. So they're going into the Who category. And then next we have Michael Myers from the Halloween franchise. And you know where Michael's going. You know where old Mikey's going for me. He's going into the Terrorific category. Michael Myers. For some, they say that John Carpenter's 1978 Halloween just kicked off the whole slasher craze of the 80s. I tend to think that there were movies that came before, like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Black Christmas, and The Town That Dreads Sundown, that helped to pave the way for Halloween to be able to run and take off. But with that aside, you have the character of Michael Myers, who has this mask where it's the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. And the fact that there's really no reasoning behind what he does, like no real backstory, unless you're going into Rob Zombie's Halloween films, but setting those aside, he's purely and simply evil. Those are the words that came right out of Dr. Loomis's mouth. So those are some of my favorite horror villains to where there's no explanation behind what they do. And the look, the blank palette of the mask and the dark eyes and this blank dead look, that really sticks out in my mind. That's what I always think of when I think of Michael Myers. That mask. Damn, that dude's creepy. I hope he doesn't stalk me anytime soon. And that's why, for me, he goes into the Terrorific category. Other bad movies aside, if I'm thinking about doing a ranking of all the movies in the Halloween franchise, if that's something that you are interested in, let me know in the comments below. And I thought this was a funny suggestion. The Necronomicon, which is the Book of the Dead from the Evil Dead franchise. And that's going to go into the awesome category. Because look, it's an inanimate object. It's a book made out of human skin. The pages are scrawled in blood. it only activates whenever someone reads from the Book of the Dead. So it is a pretty passive villain and the only inanimate object villain on the list, but a fun one, which is why the Book of the Dead and Necronomicon goes into the awesome category. Now we have Norman Bates from Psycho. Now this is an anomaly because he was, of course, Norman Bates was the villain in Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. And then they did sequels going like from the 80s up through like I think the early 90s, the mid 90s. And some of you may be like, what the hell are you thinking? But I am putting Norman Bates into the they're okay category. Psycho is one of the movies I came into pretty late in the game. And I watched that and I thought Norman Bates as a character, like he is fine, but he's not the first one I think of whenever I'm thinking of horror villains. Of course, there's that iconic line, we all go a little mad sometimes. And the fact that he kills a character in the shower are really all that I remember of him. Now, fairly, I have not seen 2, 3, or 4. Psycho is the only one that I have seen, the first one. So I was judging from that alone. That's why he goes into the okay category. Next, we have Pennywise from It, another thing based on a book by Stephen King. And I'm going to put Pennywise into their okay category. Now, there's 2 different versions of Pennywise. There's Tim Curry Pennywise, and then there's the Pennywise from It and It Chapter 2, played by Bill Skarsgård. And I don't know. I thought the 90s version, it's made for TV movie, was pretty doofus. I thought with the It and It Chapter 2, I mean, they tried, but for me, it isn't really a book that translates well to TV. It has never been one of my favorite Stephen King books. And whenever, I saw it on TV when I was 10. I remember laughing at the clown. I don't remember being scared of Pennywise really at all. And nothing against like Tim Curry's performance, but Pennywise isn't a character that clicks with me all too much. So that's why he goes to the okay category. Next, we have Pinhead from the Hellraiser franchise. Will tear your soul apart. He's terrific. Look, Hellraiser is the first movie that I ever saw when I was not supposed to. And that may make me just a little bit biased, but Pinhead scared the shit out of me. Okay? You try seeing a guy with pins in his head like pull apart like somebody at a young age and then tell me how you feel about it. But yeah, Pinhead is not really in the movies like all that much, but the lines and the look of him. Oh my God. I would not want to meet Pinhead in a dark alley, let me tell you that. So, terrific category. Boom. Case closed. Next, we have the Predator from the Badass Predator franchise. And terrific, even though when the Predator takes its mask off, it is ugly with the mask on. And it's got like the hair and it has futuristic weapons. It looks cool. Oh, I can remember the Predators always looking so cool. And there was no explanation for the lore behind the Predator or where it came from, but the fact that it continued to build on the lore, and then especially in Alien vs. Predator, the reason why Predator came to Earth was to go through the trials and fight the aliens. One of my favorite movies, by the way. Also, what I always remember about the Predator has this code of honor. It will not fight people that are injured. It will not fight people that are sick. It will just not fight people that they can't beat in a fair fight, which is very interesting for this villain to kind of have this code of honor. Besides the look, that is the one thing that I remember about Predator. And for those reasons, that's why Predator goes into iconic status. And next we have Pumpkinhead. And Pumpkinhead for me goes into the awesome category. So you have Pumpkinhead, designed by Stan Winston, and the '88 movie directed by Stan Winston. I think his first and only horror movie that he directed. And then you have later TV movies too, like Pumpkinhead TV movies, and then you have a direct-to-video Pumpkinhead. For me, speaking of the fact there's only one major Pumpkinhead film, Pumpkinhead hasn't really had a chance for me to grow into an iconic, terrific horror villain. The design is fantastic. The way that he's a revenge demon, that anyone who goes to this witch can ask for her services, and then Pumpkinhead could be a revenge demon. That concept was fascinating. And the design was also great. But Pumpkinhead's only had one movie. So I can't, or one major movie. So I can't count him as iconic or terrific. So that's why to me that he is pretty awesome. Next, we have Randall Flagg, who is the villain from The Stand again. It's a TV movie based on a book by Stephen King. Randall Flagg for me was just, I'm not gonna mince any words, he was awful. I didn't really care for the guy that played him. I didn't care for the character, period. I thought in the movie he was way too over the top. I just could not connect with him at all. So, won't mince words there. Awful. Then we have Regan, who was possessed by a demon and is in the movie The Exorcist. Awesome. I did say that I didn't really care much for haunted houses or exorcisms or possessions unless they're going to be doing something new. Exorcist is the gold standard for any exorcism or possession style movie that came after it. Very shocking for people of the time. The fact that it was this little girl being possessed by this demon, dear Lord. I could see why that freaked the hell out of people. Just the stuff that the demon was doing and the stuff that the demon was saying. Now, I had never read the book. It's something that I would really, really like to read. But wowee, Linda Blair's performance was definitely something else in the best of ways. And Exorcist is really the only movie that I've seen, so I can't really say if Regan is an iconic character, but so that's why she is in the awesome category. Now we have Sam from the movie Trick or Treat, a horror anthology of sorts, and Sam goes in the Who category. I've only seen Trick or Treat once. I remember that Sam had these rules for Halloween. I remember him being a little shit. I remember that he almost looked like a scarecrow burlap sack person. And that's really it. To me, Sam was not really engaging enough to hold my attention as a horror villain anyway. And that's why he goes into the Who category. Now next we have Samara, the creepy girl that came out of the TV from The Ring. They're okay. She goes into the they're okay category. That moment when she comes out of the TV is cemented in my mind. Utterly cemented. I remember going, whoa, whenever I first saw that. And that was creepy. It's this little girl who will not stop killing. She wants to kill because she wants to kill. She's evil. But the fact that I have only seen that movie and the TV moment was the only thing that was memorable about Samara, that's why she goes into the they're okay category. Now we have the tall man from Phantasm. Boy, I can't do Angus Scribbs like voice. I'm sorry. I just can't. But tall man, Phantasm, goes into the Terrorific category. You had Angus Scrimm, who is tall and imposing in and of himself. You have him playing this creepy villain. When you die, you don't go to heaven, you come to us. And just, oh, good. Yeah, the movie's a trip. I will say this, I've only ever seen the first Phantasm, but it is a trip. And aside, I'm also thinking of doing a ranking thing for the Phantasm franchise. So if that's something that you want me to do, also let me know in the comments. But from the one movie that I've seen alone, and the fact that he is this imposing character, or seems to be this imposing character across all the other movies. And when you think of Phantasm, you think of two things. You think of like the orb of death, the spiky orb of death, and you also think of the Tall Man and the performance by Angus Scrimm. So the Tall Man has definitely left his mark on horror, which is why he is in the Terrorific category. And next, you have Tiffany from the Chucky franchise. Some of you may be like, what? But for me, she goes in the Who category. I haven't seen any of the Chucky movies fully that have Tiffany in them. I've only ever seen clips, but from the clips, Jennifer Tilly, like as Tiffany, is hilarious. But I can't really judge based on clips alone. I need to be able to judge from watching the whole movie. So I can't say that she's okay or awesome without seeing Tiffany in a movie. So that's why for me, she goes into the Who category. Then Valak, the Nun. So the Nun's part of the Conjuring franchise of movies, and I'm going to stick her in the Who category. Only for this reason. I don't remember seeing the Nun, even if I did. And I can't really judge fairly, again, like with Tiffany, I can't really judge fairly because of that. So that's why Valak goes into the Who category. And last but not least, we have the badass xenomorph queen from Aliens. Get away from her, you bitch. There's an iconic moment right there. As far as category, Xenomorph Queen goes into the Terrorific category. I know this is not a queen, but here's the alien. How could you not think Xenomorphs are cool? Designed by H.R. Geiger. I mean, look at this. Unlike the goofy, just kind of aliens that you'll find in cheesy B movies, it grows quickly, has concentrated acid for blood, is very hard to kill because if you remember the line that Ripley said in Aliens, just one of these things managed to wipe out her entire crew in less than 24 hours. Man, and it shows it's not stupid. It shows intelligence, because how else would they be able to understand the Queen whenever she tells them to just like tells her two soldiers to back off because she thinks Ripley's going to destroy the eggs. And then you have another iconic matchup, Alien versus Predator. Again, I've already mentioned it, but again, it's one of my favorite movies. But I have always loved the look of the alien. I've always loved the fact that pretty much it is nearly unstoppable. And the design. You remember this design. When you think of xenomorphs, this design is automatically what's going to pop up in your mind. That's why the xenomorph alien queen are in the terrorist category. And whoo, we did it. We made it through all 36 iconic horror villains on this list. Now, if you made it this far, thank you for sitting and discovering rankings with me. And once again, thank you to everybody who suggested iconic horror villains to me on Threads. And also, once again, thank you to Cody Leach for the inspiration for this list. Check out his channel in the links below. Also, if you want to do your own horror ranking list, check that out in the links below as well. And make sure that you show me the screenshots or the link to your ranking list on either Instagram or Threads. Thank you all. I had a lot of fun. And sadly, class is dismissed, everybody. But I'll see you next time. Bye.